Hi everyone, it has been a long time. I put any videos on my channel. So in my today's session, I'm going to explain about this multi-tenancy or multi-tenant architecture. Okay, so let's go through that. So do remember that multi-tenancy is combination of software as a service. It forms the basis or it makes use of software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and platform as a service. Okay. So multi-tenancy basically makes use of all these stuffs and provides an architecture which is very user friendly, or you can say development friendly, and it is also very easy in order to scale enterprise grade applications. Okay, so without wasting much time, let's start the discussion on this. So multi-tenant architecture, commonly referred to as multi-tenancy, is a software architecture in which multiple single instances of software run on a single physical server. The server then serves multiple tenants. Additionally, multi-tenant architecture is used to enable multiple users to use a single application, for instance, a database. Okay, so if you see, there are basically three types of multi-tenancy models. I'm going to explain in detail, but just have a look. Okay, the multi-tenancy architecture can be implemented in three ways, that is separate application and separate database. This is typically a Kubernetes cluster, guys. Okay, it is one Kubernetes cluster, but which is running separate instances of the application on each pod. Okay, each pod is running the same application container. Okay, so different pods running same application on like different instance of the same application is being run, and all those applications makes use of different database. Okay, they won't share the database, so same application, and it works on its own database. Okay, it won't share any of its database resources. Okay, then comes one shared application and separate databases. In this model, there will be only one instance of the application. Okay, but it will be having client specific databases. Okay, so basically, if I'm working with Coca-Cola instance for the time being, okay, and if I go to my application and if I switch my tenant from a drop down or from a tile to Pepsi, then immediately the application will load the Pepsi related application instance. Okay, so basically it will load the Pepsi's context, I can say. Okay, now it will start running in the Pepsi client's context. Okay, so all Pepsi users can make use of that application. Okay, and this will happen concurrently. Okay, same application instance is being used by multiple tenants. Okay, and whenever they perform any transaction, all those data related to that transaction will save into their own databases like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, BMW, or any other clients. Then comes one more model which is called one shared application and one shared database. Again, not a recommended way, but this is also an option where there will be only one instance of the application will be running, and there will be only one database, and this database contains all your clients or tenants information or data. Okay, so that is just a high level explanation. Okay, how the things will go, and see the deployment approach how it goes. Okay, in case of separate application and separate databases, isolated deployment approach, because you have a fine grained control over the deployment of any one instance whenever you want. Okay, and without harming all the existing application instances which are running. For example, if I want to deploy some new update, okay, some new update, or if I want to do some changes, configuration changes, then I will simply go to this instance and I will apply those changes. So it won't affect any other existing running instances of your application. So very isolated deployment approach, and here shared deployment approach. You need to inform everyone in both approaches, this one and this one. You need to inform your clients, or you have to take a downtime on the weekends and you have to do the deployment. Okay, so it will be a shared deployment, guys. So that's it. Multi-tenant architecture is often used in cloud computing. Yes, correct. To offer shared tenancy on public cloud providers like Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud. Basically, all these cloud services are an example of software as a service, and indirectly they implement multi-tenant architecture. Additionally, multi-tenancy is a key part of another cloud model, which is software as a service, as I already explained. Okay. Tenants is a term for a group of users or software application that all share access to the hardware through the underlying software. Multiple tenants on a server all share the memory, which is dynamically allocated and cleaned up as needed. They also share access to system resources such as the network controller also. Okay. So basically, multiple tenants, and each tenant is basically a group of users. So consider each tenant as an external organization, okay, or a client organization. So multiple tenants will be making use of your application instances, and that application will be running on a single hardware and making use of common resources in order to run that application, guys. That is the beauty of multi-tenancy. Okay. Now, this is opposite of the single tenancy. What happens in single tenancy? In which the server runs on one instance of the operating system and one application. This one application could be something simple like file and print apps, complex like web or application servers, or mission critical such as some databases. So this is the diagram for this multi-tenant architecture. See what's the difference here? Single tenant, okay. A complete application, the software as well as hardware has been assigned to a simple single organization, okay, or tenant I can say. But in case of multi-tenancy, the same application instance and the all underlying hardware, operating system, everything is shared by multiple organizations. Okay. Why multi-tenant architecture matters? So let's go through that, guys. Multi-tenant architecture is a core technology that enables cloud computing. So as noted above, multi-tenant is used by all public cloud providers and is universally deployed in the cloud landscape. Indeed, multi-tenant architecture literally makes cloud computing economically and technologically feasible by allowing a mixed number of customers to leverage one platform. Covered in greater detail below, the cost advantages of multi-tenant tends to be the make or break factor that attracts enterprise users to multi-tenant architecture. So basically, your client organizations are not required to maintain any hardware, any softwares, any software updates. All this kind of maintenance stuff is completely on the cloud provider, guys, basically. Or the company who is providing you that service, they will take care of everything. Your only stuff is simply log into your application and do your business work. See the isolation level. Now businesses are required to just concentrate on their business, not on all this IT overhead. Okay, so that's what they are speaking about over here. The other crucial driver for multi-tenant architecture is that it enables high levels of scalability. Agreed? Because you have control power. Because what happens in case of multi-tenant architecture, the moment you observe if your system performance is going down, you can simply go to, for example, take an example of Azure itself. Go to the Azure, locate that Kubernetes cluster or locate that app service. You simply extend its power or just increase or scale up its capabilities by specifying higher level configurations. It's that easy basically. Okay. So cloud providers can expand service to customers exponentially faster because a single platform is serving multiple customers. This scalability is as important to cloud computing as many of its many advantages. Businesses migrate from their aging data centers to the cloud because they know they can, with a few clicks, agreed, access more computing power and an astounding array of cloud based tools. From artificial intelligence to machine learning to data analytics, if this process were slow or in any way cumbersome, that is, if multi tenant were not efficient and powerful, cloud computing would hardly be possible by today, guys. Okay. Now, how did multi tenant architecture develop? Okay. The concept of multi tenancy actually dated back to the 1960s when companies rented time on mainframe computers, which were rare and expensive that time. Back then, it was called time sharing. Multiple customers could access the same apps at the same time, a feat only mainframes could do. Starting in the 1990s, application service providers hosted applications on behalf of their customers, and like mainframes, the same apps were made available to multiple customers. Okay. In the modern era, multi-tenancy is part and parcel with software as a service models like Salesforce, Office 365, Zoho, many examples. Okay. As mentioned above, cloud providers do offer multi-tenancy in a technique of shared use of computing resources. However, this shared use of resources should not be confused with virtualization. Okay, there is one more concept of virtualization, guys. Okay, a closely related concept, let's say, in a multi-tenancy environment, multiple customers share the same application in the same operating system environment, okay, on the same hardware with the same storage mechanism. In virtualization, every application runs on a separate virtual machine, VMware, for example, with its own operating system. Now, what is the difference between single and multi-tenant? Single tenancy is largely seen as the deluxe option in that a client operates in a solely dedicated environment. He has all the luxury. Nobody will disturb. Nobody will sabotage the resources. Okay, everything is dedicated to him or her only. In a multi-tenant environment, each customer shares the software application along with a single database, so multiple people from the same company can access the database. Still, even in multi-tenant, each tenant is isolated from other tenants because it is completely in our control the way we design our applications. Okay, and computer resources or hardware resources are so powerful, right, guys? In the single tenancy model, most of the time they get wasted. So instead of wasting such powerful resources and expensive resources, it's better to go with multi-tenant architecture where you can basically share your hardware resources and you can basically serve the need of multiple client organizations. Okay, on the same hand on hand, you are basically saving the cost associated with your hardware, okay, and also the maintenance. So that is the beauty of multi-tenant architecture, guys. Okay, so you are not wasting any of your hardware resources, at you are gaining more and more clients and you are getting more business, okay, to your company. Advantages of single tenant architecture that I already explained. Okay, single tenant hosting gives clients more control because there is no sharing of resources. Greater customization, since they have only one client, single tenants can customize the software for their needs, whereas multi tenant tends to be one size fits all. Yes, if I'm providing some features, okay, it will be common for all the clients, but yet I have the control over enabling, disabling those features based on the client's needs. Okay, everything is possible. Okay, there is no hard and fast rule that I'm giving 10 features and all the 10 client organizations must use of 10 features. Nothing like that. It's up to them what they want to use, and we have control, complete control, I can say, in order to customize this model with the multi-tenant architecture also. So I don't agree completely with this statement. Greater isolation from security risks, basically, yeah, you control the environment and what goes in and out of it. Yeah, faster recovery, restoring one client is faster and easier than many. Agreed, because the effort and time required is very less. Better control, single tenant can be choosier about accepting software changes and updates and decide what adds on they want to use. And also avoiding the noisy neighbor syndrome. Since you are sharing resources in multi-tenant scenarios, someone else who is really heavily using the system might slow you down. Yes, this is possible, guys, basically. Take an example, I have two clients, Pepsi and Coca-Cola. Okay, but there will be times, okay, when more customers from Coca-Cola will start making use of the applications, okay, which may, but in today's or real world scenarios, this is very rare that they will end up in slowing down other client or other client application performance or application experience, I can say, basically. Okay, it won't hamper that much because of this powerful hardwares nowadays we are getting. So this can also be overcome with multi-tenant architecture. Okay, but in very rare scenarios this may happen, but the chances are very less. Disadvantages of single tenant architecture, though some companies prefer it, okay, there are some downsides also. Let me tell you. Cost, there is no cost sharing for things like balancing services, system monitoring and deployment. Client responsibilities, clients are responsible for software updates, patches, backup, restore and disaster recovery. Completely it's on the client's responsibility or the company who is providing the service. Okay, less efficient, single tenant systems can be less efficient if they don't run at full capacity. That's what I was saying. Most of the time we will be wasting the most powerful hardware and also as well as the memory resources and also the software resources like your operating systems and all. Okay, advantages of multi-tenant architecture, The chief advantage of multi-tenant hosting is that it is less expensive. Very, very true point, because if a client want to make use my application or my software product, if I use them or add them as a tenant to my application, then they are not required to maintain any hardware. All the responsibility, all those fuss and fur has been taken care by me itself. Their only job is just log into their application and use it. That's it. They have to provide, they have to pay only for the service they are taking. That's it. Okay. The resource pooling greatly reduces the cost, since you are only pay for what you need. And since multi-tenant is part of software as a service provider, you are not paying for on-premises hardware. As I already explained, functions like system monitoring and service and deployment become shared among all of the customers, which makes it less expensive as the cost is spread around. Exactly. Okay. If I have five clients basically, and if for example, take an example per month, if I am getting an expense of 10,000, then the expense will be shared among all five customers, like 2 to 2 thousands. Okay, that's the simple example. There are other advantages as well. That is a simplified hosting. It's not your hardware to manage anymore, reducing a lot of time and expense. Yes, better protection of systems with less interaction with the outside world. Exposure to malicious software is reduced. Yes, upgrading software is no longer my problem. Yes, on the service provider will take care of everything. Why should I worry? It's his responsibility to protect the system. It's his responsibility to upgrade the software on time by not hampering any client applications or client businesses, I can say. Well, let's see some disadvantages of multi-tenant architecture. Despite its cost advantage, multi-tenant environments have some downsides. They have their own security risks. For starters, you need strict authentication and access controls to make sure the right people get access. Yes, guys, this is the most important point. We must be very, very sure what level of authentication and authorization levels we set in our systems. Okay. Second, data corruption could possibly spread from one user to all, though precautions guard against this. Sometimes it is possible that accidentally you may end up in updating some data, okay, which is meant for one client, but you accidentally updated it for other client. For example, this is possible when you are going with the multi-tenancy model of one database and one application instance, where the single database is basically storing all your application data. Okay. Yes, this could happen in that scenario. Okay. Downtime, agreed, because everyone will be hampered. Downtime outages can be nationwide and often make the news when they happen. So software as a service providers tend to build enough redundancy into the system to minimize this. There should be a replication, there should be a backup, guys. Okay. So without that backup or replication, if you go with one instance, then yes, it's a big mistake, or I can say it's a big offense. Okay. Noisy neighbors, as mentioned earlier, someone else on your CPU might be consuming cycles and slowing you down. Yes, this is possible. Capacity is supposed to be elastic and expand as needed, but that's not always the case. No, no, this is not the way, because most of the time we go with the elastic pools. So whenever the need increases, the system will automatically increase the hardware resources. So no need to worry about this. So now I will discuss about multi-tenant databases. Okay, as I have given a brief introduction in the beginning itself. See, guys, how you can store data basically in multi-tenancy. Okay, the first approach is database per tenant or client. Okay, this is the most preferable approach, guys, and it will save you from a lot of extra work and problems or any kind of data breach issues. Okay, this is the best approach for multi-tenancy architecture. When you go with the multi-tenant databases, that is separate database for each client. Okay, you need to just provision a database, publish the schema to that database. Okay, do the configuration in your application, a simple configuration which will tell you there is a new client, and the associated database for that new client is this one. Okay, and you just publish the schema which is common for all the clients. Okay, that's it. Hardly one day effort, I can say. Hardly one day effort. You just ensure Once you've done this, you will just ensure you do one manual test, one full manual process. And once you are sure, okay, it's working fine, that's it. You can immediately provision to your production environment. No need to worry about it. Okay. There is no issue of data breach because each database is storing the client specific information. If you see here three databases, Pepsi will store only its database, only a database allocated for Pepsi client or tenant. Same way like Coca-Cola, BMW, like that. Okay. So no, say there is no threat of data breach. Okay. And also there is no need to filter out data because the data is associated only for that client itself. Okay. There is no need of any filterings. Okay. And there are no need of any additional migration scripts also. Okay. Very simple. Provision it, configure in the application. That's it. You set up a CI/CD, that to just a release pipeline to publish that database schema to this DB. That's it. It will start working. Then comes single instance of the application and single database. Okay, shared schema. Okay, you have sorry, only one schema, that is DBO. Okay, but what you do is you basically introduce an column called tenant ID or client ID. So whatever tables or domain entities you have in your application now, they will be having an extra column in their attribute in their table that is called tenant ID or client ID. So this particular one table, for example, if you take the order table of this model of application, multi-tenancy application, it will contain data of all the customers, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, BMW. All clients' data will be stored in only one database table. But how we differentiate? By that column, tenant ID. Now, whenever I switch context of my application from the drop down, I select Coca-Cola, then immediately the application will switch its DB context to Coca-Cola's database and sorry, same database, but all the subsequent API operation, filtering, searching, data save, update, delete, everything should happen by tenant ID. Okay, whatever operation, regardless of any database operation, okay, when you perform them, you must associate them by the tenant ID. That's it. That is the current tenant you have selected in your application. If you don't, if you make a mistake while implementing this approach, and if due to some reason, if you didn't consider the right tenant ID, there is a chance that you will end up, okay, creating, modifying data against wrong tenants. Okay, the care should be taken here, and this is very less recommended approach, guys. Okay, if you ask me, definitely I want to go for this kind of solutions. Okay, even if my application is very simpler, even if my application won't store that sensitive information, no, I won't believe in this model itself. Okay, then comes what is that? Yeah, shared database, same thing, separate schema. This is even worst compared to this one. Okay, this one is somehow okay. Okay, this one is, if you consider me, this one is somehow okay. At least I have a tenant ID column, and using only that column ID, I will filter, I will search, and I will do all CRUD operations in my database. Okay, this is somehow good. But here, just see what happens. You will be having duplicate database tables, but they are separated by schema. For example, if I have a table called employee, then I will be, if I have three clients, for example, say Pepsi, Coca-Cola, BMW, then if I want to provision all three clients, then in the same database itself, I will have three employee tables, but all three employee tables having means contained in a separate schema, like Pepsi schema, Coca-Cola schema, that is under square brackets Pepsi dot employee. Okay, in the same way Coca-Cola dot employee, and then BMW dot employee, the way how we have default schema DBO dot employee, like that. Okay, so this is also not a recommended approach, because every time you have to be sure that each and every database operation should be performed against a right schema. Here it was at the column level, here it was at the schema level, and by mistakenly if some developer updates wrong schema, for any of his DB operations or queries, then you will end up in corrupting the data. Okay, so this is the very least recommended way. And yes, if I consider, I won't prefer this approach itself. These two will work out, I think. But the most preferred approach is database per client, guys. Okay, so that's it. That's what I have explained. I think same thing over here. No need to go through that again. Choosing between multi-tenant and single tenant. Okay, this is one good topic. Yeah, choosing between single and multi-tenant often comes down to a choice of on-premises versus cloud. For instance, there is no single tenant version of Salesforce, and in contrast, major databases tend to be single tenant so as to have full access to the resources. Security of data is clearly a concern, but that falls primarily on the shoulders of SaaS providers. Yeah, the software as a service provider. If I'm providing a software as a service, it's my responsibility how I take care of security of my data. Okay, they are the ones responsible for monitoring tenants and making sure there is no data bleed from one customer to another, and they do a good job of it. Yes, they have to. The client's primary responsibility for securing the data falls to their client device. Okay, the client's primary responsibility for securing the data falls to their client device. All of the major SaaS providers do offer two-factor authentication to secure logins. Yes. After that, it's up to you to maintain the security of the endpoint device. Yeah. Multi-tenancy is at the heart of cloud computing. It is designed to help scale up thousands of users both within an enterprise and externally as companies interact and do business. Whether it's your Salesforce account, one such example is Salesforce related applications, okay, or an app you built on AWS for customers. Okay, multi-tenancy can scale through public and private clouds and provide true economies of scale. Yes, so that's all about multi-tenancy, guys. I hope you people understood the crux of multi-tenancy architecture. Okay, so it is cost effective. It basically allows us to share our expensive hardware resources which are allocated on cloud among multiple client users. Okay, and also they provide good security features also if proper actions and care has been taken. Okay, mark this statement. Okay, so this is how nowadays many applications or enterprise grade software solutions are going multi-tenant, because you are not required to maintain separate environment for each client. Again, it is a overhead. If something goes wrong, you have to sit, you have to debug, you have to, yeah, triage the issues. It is difficult basically, and for that, for each and every environment, again, you need human resources. So basically, the more and more customers, the more and more resources, okay, you need in order to support them. Okay, and you have to pay a lot, you have to spend a lot when it comes to single tenant architecture. But in case of multi-tenancy, I think all these problems will be addressed in a very simple way. Okay, and at utilizing the power as well as the functionalities provided by your software services. Okay, I hope you people understood this architecture, and yeah, definitely implement it, and please get benefited from this particular architecture. Thank you for listening, guys, and have a nice day.